What's up, everyone? It's your favorite neighborhood pirate wolf boy, SilverDFanng, saying, how's it going? Back again with YouTube Reacts. This time, Extinct Zoo's Madagascar. What was this weird, funky island like back in the Jurassic? We also get a recurring character from this video, so have fun. Okay.
Have you ever noticed that there is something just a bit unsettling about
islands? This island turned normal animals into nightmares by Extinct Zoo. I know nothing about this channel. I don't know, seems fun.
It almost seems that whenever you have a place in a movie or TV show where things are extremely messed up, that it's always an island.
Yep.
Especially if that messed upness has to do with nature. I mean...
You know what? Madagascar might have fucked up a lot of shit. Let's just call it Madagascar.
Just take the hopefully fictional Skull Island as an example. A cozy place, home to a titanic gorilla, giant creepy crawlies, and a lot of other nightmares, usually prehistoric and of the dinosaur kind. Now, it is supposed to exist in the present,
nice
yet
monkey.
Obviously it isn't really out there. But there is a very real place that is in some ways a lot like a real-life Skull Island.
Australia.
And that's Madagascar. But
Hex, have you seen this video? I was making jokes, but it is Madagascar.
Not the current one that likes to move it, but rather Madagascar of the past.
I like to move it.
Kind of a
I like to
as
move
Madagascar has been around for a while, to say the least, and has seen strange life emerge throughout its isolated history. But the time that I am specifically talking about is as it was 70 million years ago, during the late Cretaceous, when in a world known for strange animals, Madagascar still somehow managed to be the wild, wild west. Or in this case, east.
That's a fat toad.
Now, typically when you take a place and then rewind the clock by tens of millions of years, the land or area...
I'm not gonna lie, I know very little about Madagascar. I know that people actually live on there, and I only found that out because of COVID. I'm not kidding. The only reason I know that people actually live on Madagascar and they have, like, towns and cities is because during COVID, when everyone was checking the numbers and, like, percentages of, like, which countries are safer, Madagascar was like one of the first ones.
Starts to look a bit different. Yet miraculously, Madagascar
Those
looks
are
a lot like it does
awesome
today, even all the way back
trees.
then, being an island separated by hundreds of miles or kilometers of water from mainland Africa. However, it was more southward than presently, and also much more closer to India. In fact, not only were the two neighbors, but not so long beforehand, they'd actually been conjoined for an extremely long amount of time. Longer than the gap between us and dinosaurs, to give you an idea. And because of this, many animals were able to colonize Madagascar from India. And with the two separated from the rest of the world, they developed their very own distinct paleofauna, making life just a bit more interesting than normal.
Okay.
But what really cranked the weirdness thermostat up was when Madagascar ditched India and became its own island.
Suck it, India.
Well, because it was then that Madagascar's native life suddenly started to experience the pressure of insular dwarfism and gigantism. Because while Madagascar is a big island, it still ain't big enough for everything. And then when you stack complete isolation on top of this, well, you end up with a very funky place.
Ooh.
And it was the kind of place that was a bit like Skull Island, like I mentioned, wherein danger was everywhere, not just sprinkled here and there, as an abundance of life was supported by expansive alluvial plains, broad rivers, and abnormally large amounts of vegetation that took root in drained floodplains. And while it probably wouldn't take you very long to run into one of the island's many predatorial inhabitants, it could have been the weather that actually got you first, as that too was a bit different here. It wasn't necessarily extremely hot or cold, but rather periodically deathly dry, with rock formations suggesting frequent droughts that could spring up, while in general, you also had distinct dry seasons. But on top of a bottle of water, you would also need to bring a floaty. Because even in a desert here, you could drown.
What?
As it turns out that these dry spells could be rudely interrupted by rapid rain, and lots of it at that. With sediment buildup suggesting flash floods happened.
It's California!
And covered wide swathes of land, drowning anything not fast or smart
Prehistoric
enough to get the heck out
California,
of the way.
no!
And then if it wasn't Mother Nature trying to get you, it definitely would be the animals. I mean, just take a look at the mascot of the island, the Majungasaurus, an unusually ill-tempered theropod.
My lady, Majunga.
But don't let it hear you say that, because in this realm, it was king, being the island's largest theropod. And if you were greeted by one, you could expect a 7-meter or 23-foot-long unit that weighed over a ton.
Victoria,
situation,
that was perfect timing on the "Don't touch me."
could even be as big
How
as
you
a
doing?
Carnotaurus. And if you've seen the movie Dinosaur, you know why this is bad news. However, it wasn't actually its size that set it apart from other theropods, since larger predators were of course found elsewhere. Instead, it was its highly unusual construction, looking almost like someone had mashed together different body parts of animals to create a single dino.
He looks like an armored loaf of meat. Kind of like it.
For starters, its hands are absolutely tiny, almost like sausages. Though that being said, I know yours aren't, so please reach for that like and subscribe button.
Nope.
Next, its head was fat, short, and squished, while the rest of its body was then long and robust. And then as opposed to its handsies, its legs were absolute chunksters, being ridiculously thick and stout. And
boys and girls, if you like your dinosaurs with thick thighs, so I got the dinosaur for you.
collectively making the Majungasaurus hard to miss, to say the least, and an oddity among its already strange family.
I love the colors.
Now, you might be thinking these funny adaptations meant this predator was a bit more harmless than usual, but ironically what they really did was transform this beast into the ultimate giant killer. Because as it turns out, this design is how you kill sauropods. Or at least, that's the hypothesis. You see, many carnivorous theropods sport narrow skulls, which are good at withstanding vertical stress associated with powerful bites, but are bad at dealing with twisting forces, therefore forcing them to rely on numerous bites instead of just one big one. Meanwhile, our friend the Majungasaurus had a totally different strategy, being more of a bite once kind of guy, as its skull was better designed at holding onto struggling prey without needing to let go. Kind of similar to what's seen in modern felids, actually. And the rest of its body backs this one and done hypothesis, as it had bony tendons, a strong back, interlocking ribs, and then of course, those hunkering legs.
The best way I could probably guess is, if you've ever seen a crocodile, I'd latch itself onto its prey and just the whole body just like twisting and turning with it like one continuous limb. I feel like that's what this dinosaur would, the Majungasaurus would probably do, but on a massively bigger scale. So the fact that it's aerodynamic probably would help it.
All great things to have if you want to hold something. But the question is, hold what? And this is where that hypothesis comes in. Because, there was really only one animal living with it that made these features make sense. And that was sauropods. In this case, titanosaurs. To be exact, Rapetosaurus and Vahini. Two not...
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat Asaurus for me?
Huge, but still respectably sized herbivores that likely dealt with Majungasaurus on the regular. And actually, there are a few more bad omens for these guys, as their potential killer skull turned out to be enforced by bone mineralized out of skin in certain areas, while its lower jaw was hyperflexible, thus reducing injury chance while wrestling with titans. And to finish the package, even its teeth were a bit off, with the front being thicker than the rest and curved on the front edges, yet straighter in the back. A design which, surprisingly, prevents slicing, but again implies that this hunter wanted to grip prey and subdue them, not cut them up. And lo and behold, paleontologists would eventually find Rapetosaurus remains with numerous Majungasaurus bite marks on them, a sign that on this island, not even the largest animals on Earth were safe. However, before you let out a big sigh of relief, the Majungasaurus must have held no interest in smaller things. There is something you should know. So far, all evidence we know of suggests that Majungasaurus was the complete opposite of a picky eater. Seriously. I mean, if it came down to it, it would even eat itself. And actually, Majungasaurus is the only known non-ape down to it, it would even eat itself.
You're right. You're right, it's
nice
to
animals. Meet you. I'm Toff.
The Majungasaurus is actually kind of cute. I like the coloring.
And actually, Majungasaurus is the only known non-avian dinosaur that paleontologists consider to have had directly confirmed cannibalistic tendencies. As in 2007, researchers stumbled upon not one, but multiple specimens that bore bite marks identical to its own kind. With the size, spacing, and serrations all matching up. What's more, is that the specimens range greatly in size, and showed intensely deep bite marks, indicating that their carcasses...
So the thing that I'm curious by is because he has talked about how this dinosaur did not do the quick cuts. It did the one chomp, and also how his head was very much made to be durable. So I'm curious where those bite marks were found, because like even for its own teeth, like I feel like their heads would have been like way too hard. So like, and they don't really have a neck. They have something like a neck that keeps on going into the body. So I'm really curious how one of their own would actually kill another.
Were fully defleshed, and meaning that these marks were definitely no love bites, if you get my drift. However, one mystery does remain behind these crime scenes, and that's if who made them the really killers or just scavengers. And in recent years, an explanation put forth is that they were likely similar to Komodo dragons, who when mauling a prey or carcass, can get
Sorry,
a bit too
I had
excited,
to.
leading
The
to a
timing
really
just seemed
unfortunate
right.
individual sometimes getting caught up in the mosh
Steve, can you let go of me? No. Hungry. Nom, 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 nom.
pit, so to speak. And you know, at that point, meat is just meat.
Yeah,
At
you're
least
probably
according
right
to
about
Joe's source.
arteries, but
Direct
like,
quote, by the way.
look at this. How do you get to the arteries from here? Like they don't seem like the type to go underneath. So like they're probably going head on. Maybe they could get like an artery in the bottom, but like biting down enough force with like going from the top. Like, look, I'm not saying I need a Deadliest Warrior or like a death battle of these two dinosaurs fighting each other, but I'm really curious how they kill each other, because they really look like they're made not only to kill big dinosaurs, but also defend against each other.
And beyond having to worry about their own, they also had to worry
I mean, I did compare them to crocodiles, and the sideway attack is a crocodile move, so you might be right.
about getting injured, as when they did, an interesting thing would occur. Researchers noted that most specimens of Majungasaurus are perfectly fine, having basically no pathology, meaning injuries. But oddly, when one did have trauma, for example to the tail, then they usually had a lot more injuries as well, leading to the idea that in the Majungasaurus' environment, one injury could snowball into many over the course of a lifetime, making them highly susceptible to accidents.
I mean, that makes
And this
sense.
probably wasn't helped by their brains, which even for a theropod was extremely small. And in particular, its flocculus was heavily reduced, a part of the brain that helps coordinate movements between the eyes and head. Meaning that unlike most theropods who looked around quickly to spot prey, this hunter had to come up with other means of meal detection. And overall, their brain's shape was actually closer to that of a crocodilian than a bird.
Okay. The more they speak, the more I'm thinking, yeah, this is just a predecessor to a crocodile.
However, where it was much closer to birds was in respiration, having possessed air sacs which could have allowed for flow through ventilation, which is a complicated but highly effective mode of breathing that likely did help make up for their lack of noggins. And if these guys don't really sound like your cup of tea, then I would strongly suggest staying away from any floodplain or tidal flats you'd spot.
You got
as these
it.
biomes were the preferred habitat, with most of their fossils coming from such areas. Unfortunately though, running away from your problems here would likely just land you into more trouble, as this island had effectively everything turned into monsters, not just the dinosaurs, as thanks to the island's isolation and reduced
I forgot that this wasn't just about the Majungasaurus, but about how fucked up Madagascar was. It was and probably still is as an island.
size, some creatures, typically limited by their
Yeah,
presence,
big
were
ass
able
toad!
to finally take a breather and gain some ground, resulting in more than a few cases of island gigantism. And sadly for our friends with the phidiophobia out there, this extended to a snake.
Okay.
Or a giant snake, I should say. The Matsoya madagascariensis.
Ooh.
Or maybe more fittingly named Madagascariensis. As its name suggests, it was a member of the now extinct family Matsoidae, who were a bunch of Gondwanan snakes that greatly varied in size,
Incoming at
with
break.
some being no more than 1 meter or 3.3 feet long. However, this bottom
I mean, I don't blame him. The Majungasaurus honestly does seem pretty cool. But time for big ass snake. Samuel Jackson, take it away. I'm sick of these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking island.
range definitely did not apply to the Madagascariensis. And on this island, with limited competition from other snakes and carnivorous dinosaurs, it absolutely swelled in size, with an isolated fragment suggesting a length of 26 feet or 8 meters long. And just in case, you need a visual for that, Here is what a 26-footer looks like in real life.
God damn!
And at this size, snakes actually held, or at least tied, the Majungasaurus for being the largest predators on the island, at least from a length standpoint, and giving it basically free domain over most areas, where it would have staged ambushes on the misfortunate small dinosaur, mammal, or lizard. Now for better or worse, it wasn't a venomous snake, instead being a constrictor like boas and pythons.
Yeah, people are scared a lot of the poisonous ones. Poison, so some of them can be slow and really bad. Constrictors, man, like that is all muscle just around you, just crushing you until you stop breathing. It is, oof.
However, for worse, it did have a much scarier way of consuming prey than most.
Oh, great.
You see, studies on its jaws found them to be quite primitive and very rigid. In other words, not well adapted for swallowing prey whole, like boas and anacondas did. Therefore, in order to get around this pesky little obstacle, it liked to use its powerful body muscles and insanely sharp teeth to simply bite and rip off edible chunks.
Oh no!
Eating its prey in a fashion similar to what's seen in certain eels. And worse news yet, this genus seems to have been basically fully terrestrial, whereas most of the large snakes of today are actually semi-aquatic. And then, there was even an additional Matsoidae that also preferred land over water, the Menarana, a much smaller, but still uncomfortably large snake that reached about 8 feet, or 2.4 meters long. Now, the aptitude for land of these large predators may give you the false impression that fresh water was actually your safest bet to hang around in prehistoric Madagascar. Yet honestly, nowhere would be a good resting spot in this deranged island, if yet another predator held sway over fresh water.
Crocodile?
Crocs.
Yay!
Specifically, the Mahajungasaurus.
Mahajungasaurus!
Now, this animal sure would have looked a bit like modern crocodiles, but it was not one. And actually, it wasn't even that related to the Crocodylus genus, having instead been a part of the Notosuchia, a group of crocodilomorphs known for usually being terrestrial, having erect limbs and highly derived members.
Okay, next King Kong movie, I need this as an enemy. No more big spiders, no like dinosaurs. I need this. This is like grade A, like monster horror vibes. Dude looks like what you get if you combine the lizard from Spider-Man with a Komodo dragon and a really bad 3D artist.
With many possessing odd traits, such as mammal-like teeth, fleshy cheeks, pig-like snouts, and mouths that resemble that of a pug, or in some cases, ducks. But the Mahajungasaurus did not have any of these strange features, but it was very derived in its own way, having broken from the trend of terrestrial life and seemingly adapted for a semi-aquatic one, making it even more similar to
I want to see that again.
Life and seemingly adapted.
I need a statue of this ASAP. This is so fucking cool. The coloring, the shape, oh god. Whatever like artist designed this, I love that they kind of made him a hippo crocodile. I kind of love it.
For a semi-aquatic one, making it even more similar to modern-day crocs through convergent evolution. And compared to other Notosuchians, it was further differentiated by its lethality, for nearly no others came close to its size or voraciousness, with the largest specimens indicating a max length of 5 meters or just over 16 feet. So, definitely big enough to snag any human-sized prey. And they did so with highly compact, yet robust jaws that were filled with xiphodont teeth, meaning laterally compressed and serrated, which are features normally seen in large theropods, just to give you an idea of how much it would suck to be bitten by them. And to match their offense, these hunters also had impressive defense, sporting bony pits or osteoderms that were unusually deep, suggesting that in life, these plates would have been wide and thick, providing ample protection from run-ins with any dinosaurs or competitor. And this combination of offense and defense clearly worked, since fossil remains show that Mahajungasaurus was highly prevalent in the water systems, where it was joined by, of course, predatory fish,
How is everyone?
such as the so-called saber-toothed herring, Encetus, and gars that were on par with the largest known ones of today. So obviously, having these fish and reptilians around is not great
SST.
news for any time travelers
Toff
on the
has a
island.
dream.
However,
Can the chat
not all
describe
crocs
it?
would be out to get you, for it was also here that you'd actually find not only a friendly croc, but an absolutely adorable one too, the Simasaurus. In short, this croc...
It's Mudang! It's Mudang Jurassic period! Oh, Mudang Jurassic! Mudang Jurassic. Mudang Jurassic.
Crocodilomorph is what you'd get if you mix a small croc and
Pug
a pug
plus
together,
crocodile.
resulting in a short, compact body that was quite stout like a bulldog's, while its face resembled that
sorry,
of a short
what was-
crocodile, but an absolutely adorable one too, the Simasuke.
Okay, 1 second. Simosuchus.
Wow, what a weird dream.
They're gonna hang out for a while. It's just so fucking cute. Okay, back to the video.
In short, this crocodilomorph is what you'd get if you mix a small croc and a pug together,
cute!
resulting in a short, compact body that was quite stout like a bulldog's, while its face resembled that of a pug too, being ridiculously short and looking like it got squished. It was also closer to being a pug in size than most other animals, with adults not even reaching
Stupid
lengths
Pat.
greater than 0.75 meters or 2.5 feet. Yet, it was not its mini size or cuteness that ultimately drew paleontologists in, but rather its very strange teeth.
Okay, takes a couple of cute points away, I'm not gonna lie. The fact that he has nightmare hand teeth, but as long as he doesn't smile, still very cute.
As they were shaped like a maple leaf. A design not really great for...
It's Canadian! Okay, I might have to keep this image and just, have it here. National animal of Canada. The Mudang crocodile pug.
cutting or processing meat, but pretty darn good for shearing leaves. And of all the living animals on Earth today, its closest twin when it comes to dentition is the herbivorous iguana, adding some indirect support that Simasuchus had a taste for leaves. Additionally, its odd smushed face makes it even less likely that it was out there causing terror in Madagascar. And for now, the majority of researchers consider it to have been a vegetarian, while
Makes
a small
sense.
handful maintain that it was omnivorous at most. Whatever was the case though, this was one face I wouldn't have minded seeing in Cretaceous Madagascar. And it would also be pretty easy to spot them from a distance.
Okay, someone who's really into Mudang definitely made him look like Mudang. Like, this is Mudang as a crocodile.
Because besides their odd appearance, they also had a strange way of getting around, as they were, like most Notasuchians, covered in armor, which in their case was arranged in a highly inflexible manner, and thus restricting movement, and forcing them to run in a funny, not-so-efficient style. However, Simasuchus may have had one trick up its sleeve to offset this clunkiness, and that was burrowing. Now, it's not confirmed, but some researchers claim that its funny-looking face may have acted as some sort of biological shovel, allowing it to burrow and hide from various threats, plus dig for food. Sadly, though, despite this possible, incredibly powerful tool, I still worry that this cute exception to Madagascar was still a regular target for predators.
Oh, 100%.
Especially since it wasn't just giant cannibals, crocs, and snakes lurking around. There were also plenty of smaller killers, too. One of which was something you don't typically expect
Frog
to be
time?
scary. A frog. The Beelzebufo. Now, frogs are generally not the most
That frog is boofing? Damn you, boof frog. Damn boofer.
interesting of extinct animals. But I assure you, Beelzebufo very much was. I mean, there's a reason it's been given the nickname, the Frog from Hell. And part of that reason is because it was
No,
an
that's
absolute
a-
chunkster,
that's another
with
movie
original
with Rowdy
estimates
Roddy
ranking
Piper.
adults to be more than 10 pounds, or 4.5 kilos.
That's a
and
chunker.
measuring 42.5 centimeters, or 16.7 inches across, making it more comparable to small dogs than other frogs. Additionally, this gave it the crown as the biggest frog ever discovered.
Damn.
And about 30% larger than the largest frog on the planet today. the Goliath frog.
My bad. I just realized this weird angle. It's my bad.
Now, I will say, in more recent times, these original estimates have been criticized and a more conservative number has been put forth, suggesting a real length of around 9.1
Oh, I can
inches
see that.
or 23.2
Beelzebuffa does look
which is similar
arc-like.
to an African bullfrog. But here's the peculiar thing. Even if this was the case, it doesn't change the fact that the largest known specimens still have unsutured skulls, a sign that they weren't even done growing, leading some paleontologists to assert that monstrous individuals are out there, just waiting to be found. And trust me, it wouldn't have just been their plumpness that would have shocked you, as if you got too close to one, you'd also find out about their more, insidious traits.
Poison?
Including a gargantuan mouth.
Oh.
You see, all frogs have relatively flexible, wide mouths.
Yeah.
Yet Beelzebufo, he took it to a whole nother level.
Ah ha ha. Utu tatu solo. Ah ha ha.
So much so that given their already unusual sizes, they might have even been able to prey on the once rulers of Earth, dinosaurs. At least small ones like baby theropods and sauropods. And such a voracious appetite was further reflected by their actual bite.
Okay.
As despite being many times smaller than humans, Beelzebufo could actually muster up a stronger bite force, with reconstructions estimating forces as high as 2,200 newtons, which is 70 times more powerful than the bite seen in modern large frogs.
I didn't need to see
Just
that.
to really put this into perspective, most humans don't even crack 500, putting the Beelzebufo more on par with literal wolves and female tigers.
That's my brother
And just
there.
when it seemed they couldn't get any
Stupid humans. You don't know what it's like to have a strong jaw. Aye.
meaner, it turns out that this frog also sported devilish horns, and a row of plate-like armor which ran down its back, which all led to the assumption that it truly was designed to be anti-dinosaur. So yeah, even the frogs in Madagascar were best to be avoided.
Okay, so I wanted him to finish. For MTG fans, we know very much about the Beelzebufo, because Beelzebufo, honestly, from the way he talked about it, it's just the Gitrog. Look at this thing. I don't know for sure, but I would not be surprised if the Gitrog monster was based off of the Beelzebufo. Like, this is just a massive frog horror that eats people whole. Oh god, the Gitrog.
And between them and every other
A frog with teeth is scary.
monstrosity I mentioned,
It's also Canadian teeth.
you'd expect that survival here was quite hard. And ultimately it was.
Oh wait, no, that was Mudang. Mudang had the Canadian teeth.
Which is why it's quite surprising that it's also here that an unlikely group who typically lived in the shadows were thriving. Mammals.
Oh.
And not only were they thriving, our ancient ancestors seem to have dipped all their feet into that good old insular gigantism. Because of the three genera known to the island, those being the Adelatherium, Levanify, and Ventana, two were literally among the top 5 largest Mesozoic mammals that we know of. But I wouldn't hold your breath, because they still were quite small by today's standards, and the largest of the bunch, Ventana, was only 19 pounds, or 8.7 kilos, which is, coincidentally, the same size as the largest mammalian carnivore in Madagascar today, the fossa. But Ventana was no predator, sporting teeth designed for herbivorous lifestyle, consisting of roots, seeds, twigs, and nut-like fruits. Not super interesting, but Ventana did make up for this by having a secret superpower: smell. This guy was the king of schnozzes, emperor of noses,
That is a
and
nice
ruler
schnoz.
of sniffing. And I say this because literally 14% of its brain volume was dedicated to olfactory bulbs, the area responsible for smelling. Which, just to show how crazy that is, the region in our brain constitutes a measly 0.01%, and
He also's got a cute nose.
in dogs, 0.31%, so not much better. And why it had such power dedicated to smelling is unknown. Yet on an island filled with lots of threats, I'm sure it was useful. And the contemporary Adelatherium also had its uniqueness too, though not in the smell department, rather in its foramen. For those who don't know, foramen is an opening or gap that allows for the passage of nerves, arteries, veins, and other soft tissue structures.
I did not know that.
From one body part to another. And the more one animal has, then more likely it is the case that they have a pretty specialized system somewhere. And in the case of the Adelatherium, we don't know exactly what this was. but we do know it had the second highest amount of foramen of any known mammal ever, meaning that hidden in its body was one crazily complex system, which presumably was needed in such an environment. And hopefully, one day we will know exactly what its secret power was. But what we don't have to wait on is knowledge regarding another resident of this island, who actually was probably one of our distant relatives' top worry, the theropod Madagascar. Like the Madagascar, this dinosaur is believed to have been a part of the clade Ceratosauria. Though unlike the former, it wasn't an ableosaur, rather a noosaurid, which did actually make
it was an evil ostrich.
It closely related, though clearly not enough to get those big genes, as it was rather small for a theropod, reaching only 2.1 meters or 6.9 feet in length, while only weighing as much as a Nile monitor lizard, so about 44 pounds or 20 kilos. And this might not seem that much, but when you stack one of these guys next to any of Madagascar's prehistoric mammals, it suddenly seems quite daunting. And we know through its teeth that it definitely liked meat, which also happened to be very odd.
Yeah.
Like you would expect in a carnivorous theropod, the majority were serrated and laterally compressed. But then at the front of its mouth, it had 4 teeth that were just super off, protruding out of the mouth and being both spoon-shaped and hooked. And such a strange design has given birth to a lot of hypotheses on their purpose, with one of the more prominent ones being that they help to grip food, especially smaller food, leading to the idea that small invertebrates, vertebrates, and maybe even fruits were all possible food choices, which doesn't really tell us much. But
he definitely feels like a mid-boss that really liked to mess with like smaller enemies. He definitely feels like someone, he definitely feels like he's if you want to like dominate the apex of Madagascar, he's the first boss.
Such an adaptation would make sense on an island susceptible to hectic weather, and where resources could dwindle. And actually, Madagascar has shown paleontologists the volatility of the island's climate through other means, namely its growth. By sheer coincidence, Madagascar had once been subjected to a bone growth study due to the large amount of fossils, which strangely found that despite being quite small, it also grew very slow, taking about 10 years to reach the size of a large dog, leading to the conclusion that it evolved a slow growth rate in order to minimize nutritional investment in a harsh ecosystem.
Smart creature.
Yet, while Cretaceous Madagascar could become a desert.
Artist. What's this? What part of the bone structure did you think, oh, it's always pregnant? It is always hormonal and will never shut the fuck up. That's why I named it my ex-wife-asaur.
Nightmare, it wasn't a lack of water which doomed its inhabitants in the end. Instead, like the rest of the world, this one-of-a-kind ecosystem was erased 60...
So that was my other thought, Hex, and I was hoping... Well, and I wasn't hoping. I couldn't think of a dumb joke about a pubic bone. Which... Now that I think of it, it's right there. It's a fucking pubic bone. That is the joke.
6 million years ago, during the KT extinction event. And despite being far from the impact site, plus being walled off by mainland Africa, we know for a fact that things got really bad there on that day, as none of the mammals on the island today have lineages that date back to the Mesozoic, heavily implying that the entire island got a factory reset. And who knows, maybe...
And that factory reset is still insane.
That was for the best. Thanks for watching, and until next time, on Extinct Zoo.
That was really cool. Thank you, Car, for showing that to me. God, that image. Okay. One sec.